Aloha, everyone. This is Carlotta J with Lovelight Speaks. And today's episode, we are sharing with Lesley Wirth, a absolutely gorgeous soul. She is a poet and writer with a master's in spiritual psychology. She's the creator of Poetry for Healing and The Feminine Path to Healing. Both platforms inspire women to heal from the inside out by accessing their soul wisdom and higher self-guidance so that they can become their own healer. Through several incredibly difficult experiences, Lesley learned the answers truly are within, and that grace is indeed real. Her writing tells the story of every woman's transformation and the power of the heart to cut through the debris and guide us to our true path. She teaches women how to find this place within themselves through her private mentoring classes and creative awakening programs. I am so happy to invite her in to share with us today with Lovelight Speaks. She's a well of wisdom, and we'll bring her in. So excited for you guys to meet her. All right, there she is. Aloha, Miss Lesley.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to Lovelight Speaks. It's been a long time coming. We've been interested in doing this together, and I'm so excited to have you as our guest today. I have done a little introduction, but of course, I could do it no justice. Not to where, just feeling your radiance, being in your presence, really does, speak volumes. So welcome, and
Thank you.
yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to see you too.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's I've been crossing my fingers for this opportunity for quite some time, and I know that you are super busy. You've been, fully embracing this journey of yours, and I would love for you to share with the world kind of what you are in right now, what's happening for you, and what are the beautiful things that are coming through you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what am I in right now? Well, I'm in a beautiful creative journey that feels like it's been honestly like a year of really hard work, but before that, even like a lifetime. Like it took me like a lifetime to get here, and it feels like it's finally happening. And it's so, I've never really had that feeling before. So it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and the nature of your work is so intimate, right? It's so it helps us to connect to the most significant places within ourselves. Share with me what kind of ignited you into this this platform, this realm, this journey, this mission that you have in your heart, and share with the world a little bit more about like what led you to this experience.
Yeah, well, there's two big things that I've created in the last year. One of them is that is the Poetry for Healing, which it's interesting that you asked that because I was just shooting one of my promo videos for it today where I told the story and where it came from and all of that. Yeah. So I stumbled onto poetry like almost accidentally. I always tell people it happened to me, and it's interesting because greatest gift was to give and that it found them. So in a similar way, I had gone through so many difficult experiences with my health, and nobody was able to give me the answers. And I spent a lot of time trying to find solutions outside of myself. I went to a lot of doctors, went to a lot of different healers, and I had actually done quite a bit of inner work up to that point, but because I wasn't able to access anything, I started to look all around me. And when they couldn't give it to me either, I had to find like a third alternative, which um, really brought me to honoring the feminine, honoring my intuition, my voice, my body, my, unconscious energy, my spiritual connection, all those unseen forces, and using them in more of like a sacred feminine way, of reverence, rather than an exaltation where I'm saying, I'm a queen or I'm a goddess. It was more like, how do I take their medicine and bring it to me? How do I revere and truly listen deeply to my body, truly listen deeply to my intuition, listen deeply to my guidance? And in order to do that, I actually had, and I still have to do this because I'm such an emotional based person. I have to move a lot of energy out. So I also had to learn how to allow my authentic experience, if it was anger or whatever. And that's really what I discovered was a big issue for me, was learning how to have permission to let everything be true, whatever that was, without judgment. And so I went through that process and made a lot of headway, but still wasn't turning the corner. And um, then I met somebody and I fell in love with him, and he wasn't trustable. And so, this was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so then I started just feeling really overwhelmed, and found myself writing for like 3 to 4 hours at a time. And what was coming through were poems. It was completely unintentional. And I would just hear cadence, and the words would come through, and I'd write and write and write. And I would read over them and start crying, because it was so clear to me that, I showed up in confusion, I showed up in overwhelm, or whatever was going on for me. And this medicine was writing back to me, this part of me that I wasn't accessing until I sat to write, that was basically telling me who I was and my beauty and my power, and reframing my thinking. And I began to really like have therapy with my own soul and heal from the inside out. And so yeah, it was a beautiful journey.
Potent, potent, that place where we all have to find the courage to be still and to sit with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And just allow anything and everything to come through, right? It takes a lot of courage to do that, sis.
It does.
It
does.
And the beauty is the reward of what we see, right? Like what comes through, like this floodgate is, accessed. And 3 hours of writing is like that's an accomplishment, right? Of inner expression.
Yeah.
Right? That, and that exchange between the I don't know, the human level and the that divine level, and that coalescing, that you're creating a space for that. You finally got to a place where you're just like, and it came to you, it came through you, right? And that's just astoundingly beautiful. And the fact that you found a way to take that very personal experience and share it with the world, but encourage a very unique experience with it, a very authentic, personally, derivative, like that they, like you took your wounds and you were able to find a way to help others express and come to a deeper sense of wholeness within themselves. To me, that is the beauty of the courage that you exercise by giving yourself that sacred space to just be still with yourself.
I really appreciate that, because I can, just your language, like you really understand it. And yeah, I think that having somebody there that actually wants those parts of you to come forward, that wants your shadows or your light, and wants all of it, and wants all of you, and wants you to create art with it, and to feel free to express whatever is authentic. I think that's the most important thing for me with anybody is I would rather sit with somebody who's unraveling, if that's true for them, than somebody who's presenting an image but is out of integrity with themselves or others, or just unable to let their true self be seen. I think that that's what we're all craving, really. And so just having that space to do that with a group of women is really beautiful, and it's actually uplifting. It's such a paradox, because I found that the more I speak authentically and share whatever's kind of bubbling up, my self-esteem gets like more, it's better. My voice is stronger. I feel more connected to the divine. So it's this amazing paradox where it doesn't feel that it's just about purging something negative. It's like you've said, it's the merging of the two, and the higher self and then your human self working together, and just how loved we are to be able to reach those places and write from there and connect. It's just an amazing thing.
Beautiful. And it's that, like you said, we're human. All of the above exists. All of the above is true. We're going to be outraged and angered and furious, or feel incredibly vulnerable, or trespassed, or, I mean, all of that is the richness, the cornucopia of the human experience. And why should we feel shamed? Why should we feel less than when we are experiencing some of these dynamics? Because those dynamics are the fuel to the divine. They're the catalyzing aspects that allow us to, one, know we're alive, and two, have forged this like, to me, it's how we connect to our inner navigating system, to our intuition. When something's off and we're going through it on an emotional level, it's prompting us towards our inner light. It's prompting us to honor ourselves, to respect ourselves, and most importantly, to love ourselves unconditionally, right? And that's what I found beautiful with what you were sharing, is that, to allow it to be whatever it is an act of unconditional love.
It really is.
Yeah, and to for you to be able to bring it into a format where you can hold space, not only for yourself, because that's a huge accomplishment, to be able to hold space for yourself, but to be able to do that in a context where you're holding space and teaching other people how to hold space for themselves and one another. That's why I was like, girl, we got to do this, because that's the new wave of healing, I think, is this self-healing. I really believe that the age of the guru is over. The age of the healer on an external context is over. Like we really are being invited and giving the opportunity to step into our own self-healing, self-realization, self-reclamation process. And I just absolutely love how you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, like I said, it's really fun to take something that you would think would, I mean, I guess I'll just use myself as an example. When I first started sharing, my edge was simply to share a poem that wasn't the image that everybody necessarily thought of me at that time. And so it was a vulnerable edge for me. And what I noticed is that there was this like high that I got on, can I do this? Let's see what happens. And it was exciting for me to push my edge of being seen and how I would react inside. And that nervousness of, there is a truth to, like, we don't want to be rejected and we don't want to be judged. But again, I just noticed this again and again in this work, there's a paradox, because as soon as that feeling comes up and you stand behind you, you feel the strength of yourself. And so that you're so proud of yourself that just kind of is secondary. And so it's really, it can become fun in a way, if that makes sense, to push that edge.
You're transmuting fear, and you're realizing what's on the other side of that fear is a is a kind of an exhilaration because you're witnessing that purest place within yourself. It is, am I tapping in there? Right? Like,
Yeah. And it opens hearts, it opens your heart, and then it opens other people's hearts. And I think that that's where the healing is too, is just, we can't do bullet point processes anymore, and following others and expecting to have results. It's at the end of the day, I really believe that healing is simple, and it's just following the things that are not really us falling away, and coming back into contact with our true nature, but giving space for those things. And like you said so eloquently, they are the door and the motivation and the fire to the divine, to whatever that means for you, whatever, that can be anything for somebody, but that push to that next level of our evolution and growth and self-love.
and do we need that? Can I get an amen? I mean, the world with all that's going on, I feel like, that again, we are really craving the knowing that there is an internal wealth within us, right? There is such a bounty within us. We already have it. It's just, again, we've been kind of navigated, programmed, socialized, whatever you want to say, away from trusting ourselves, having full appreciation, like actually celebrating ourselves. And I don't mean it in the selfie Instagram way. That's because that's more of a, what I would consider, there's marketing and whatnot, but this is not a superficial act. This is the opposite spectrum. This is actually being okay with recognizing that wherever we have been perhaps superficial, and allowing ourselves to feel into and know what's truly deep within ourselves.
There's so much wisdom there, and I never would have found it if I hadn't had no other choice. I does that make sense? Like, I feel like I was like, why did I sign up for this track of so much challenge? And it's like, well, because you really needed to live from your heart and to know your light and to find your power. And I don't think I would have just followed the mundane if I had not been in faceplant so many times that I had to find that.
Well, and the beauty is that, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. We know this, and there is that resilience. And once we catch on to the resilience, like, okay, that I crossed a threshold I didn't know if I could, or I didn't know what would, into the unknown, whether it's relationship with others or relationship with ourselves. But I see the world coming and returning to themselves, because that's where the truth is. That's where our hearts, are radiating from the center of our being. And I honestly believe that our extended self, higher self, however you want to say it, is that our soul level consciousness is always allowing and providing us a fast track. In other words, there's no way to get it wrong. And our higher selves is like this, kind of grandparent that's always putting something in the path that's going to, like, ahead of you, like setting you up for success. That it's and it's unconditional. No matter what decision you make at any point in time, we're always being given and prompted towards our most vibrant expression, our most truest self. And I feel like that the path that you are allowing others to tap into and become intimately connected to is that journey of allowing yourself to, get closer and closer and recognize the relationship of that higher self, soul level self, guiding you towards the most beautiful parts of what you are.
Yeah, it's so well put. And I honestly, I didn't even know that you understood to this depth, like, because we've talked about it, but I think we've done it in a really fun way. Like, it's been like, oh, I want to read this piece or whatever. And so it's so beautiful to hear the depth of your understanding of it. And just because it's easy to see in the self, but sometimes maybe not have that deep of an understanding of what somebody else is doing. So thank you. Yeah. And I think for me, what's been the biggest challenge and blessing is that I felt like, how do I put this? I think I judged myself the hardest for anything that wasn't like considered spiritual, right? Whatever that means. And we know that that's not true. And we know that that's a man-made concept, but it's kind of like the church is, there's all these beautiful people within the church and the messages can be beautiful. And then you've got the people that are twisting it and making it into something completely different and the damage that does. And then you can do that with any area. And I think with the self-help and the spiritual, I don't know, world, I guess you could say, where people are really on this path of self-discovery and connecting to their heart and soul, sometimes things get off center there as well. And it can feel like you're supposed to be, right, more compassionate, you're supposed to be kinder, you're supposed to forgive, all these things that are wonderful, thank God for them. But then the mind can come in and it can feel like I'm not being evolved enough, for example, right? If you're just making it really basic, and I should be over here and I shouldn't feel this way, and if I show this part of me, I'm gonna not be as magnetic, and I'm not going to be as light, and I'm not going to be as desirable. And that's the shadow side to me of the self-help world. And it's obviously not everybody, but I fell into that. I like used it against myself. Like so I didn't feel allowed. So when I finally stepped into fully allowing it and really actually not listening to even the people that mentored me and just being like, no, I know what I need. And these parts need a voice and they need space. And my heart just blew open. It just blew open because I was seeing like from above down on all these parts that I thought, because of that community, didn't like those parts. I didn't feel comfortable in, but when I saw it through higher eyes, I saw the wisdom, I saw the tenderness and the beauty actually of what my soul was doing, which was waking me up, and the determination and the integrity and, just everything became like soul-centered vision. And then when I would look around, it was like I could see that in other people. Like it just became, there's no further ahead and behind. Everybody's just waking up together. We all have different experiences. And when you can see from soul-centered vision, you understand that whatever anybody's even playing out, you've done that in another life. Or there's just so much beauty to me and that type of reflection and way of being with ourselves and others, because it gives permission and room for our whole self to grow and continue to be loved and nurtured.
And it's that compassion, right? It's the allowance and that space and that unconditional welcoming and receptivity that allows us to like work with, see, dance with the pain of shame, the pain of not feeling accepted, even in certain spiritual sectors, right? And to be amongst, and that's the interesting part, because it is tricky and it's very prevalent, to be amongst certain crowds, that hold a certain criteria or a persona, that in a way you can feel judged or you can feel less than, and it doesn't seem tangible or sustainable. But the beautiful part is when you begin to see, you said it and my whole heart just exploded, when you begin to see through that soul level, that soul eye, and you see yourself and everyone else as, through that frequency, through that unconditional space. You're just like, there's no true like model, there's there's this essence, and you know it when you're with it. You know it when it's with you. You know it, and there. I don't think there's anything more satiating than that self-love and that ability to see others, no matter what they're going through, no matter how they're conducting themselves, but you see them in a way that allows you to celebrate all the above, the good, the bad, the ugly, to celebrate. You're like, aha, right? Because that's where the transformative energy is going. That's where the mojo is, right? And so to embrace that and to create a space for that, like you have, and a process for others to process, right, is super necessary, I think, right now in the world, right? Like this is how we're going to allow people to not depend on like the experts in certain fields. And don't you think it comes down to resonance? It's like whatever you resonate with, right?
Absolutely.
Then like if you're inspired, to me, that's the language of the heart. If you are inspired and you resonate, and like you said, your whole heart just exploded, right? Like that right there is like the ding, 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 bingo, you've won, kind of, prompt. It's like, okay, now you've hit the jackpot, stay in that zone, like, kind of try to allow that to be your barometer. And that way, no matter what, if you're going through the human journey, you'll always know that exists, that heart-centered really ignition. And the more we answer to that call, the more we honor that call, the more we do things that bring us to that place with collaborations and our own decision making. If we pursue our joy and that ignition through the heart, how are we going to look back and say that we did anything that was not in alignment with ourselves?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And I think too, then for me, it became actually the capacity to, like I said, just see the beauty in all the things. So instead of whether it was fear, jealousy, confusion, shame, whatever it was, instead of them being things that were bad, right? And I know no one thinks that, but you have to look at yourself and go, but am I hiding it? Because if you're hiding it, then and it's normal. Nobody, would you rather show people you having a meltdown or you laughing? Like it's a normal part of being human. But I think it can get to that point where you don't feel free. And if you're not telling yourself the truth, that's what's the problem. So even if it's not blasted, it's like, but can I allow this? Can I say I'm really angry right now or whatever it is, right? And then for me, I just started to really see the beauty in all of it and the power in all of it, and didn't separate those energies from what people call higher frequencies. I know energetically the frequency is different, but in terms of how I relate to myself, like one side or the other, it was all a beautiful part of what this is.
Yeah. And I think those things, like I said, are the catalyzing energies. They are they're the catalyst. I mean, and that's like where that's the sweet spot. Like when you come to recognize that, you're like, okay, well, I'm literally being launched into an opportunity to embrace and understand and understand, right? To stand with it, like you're saying. Love it so much. What do you feel is the most valuable part of, like, if you wanted someone, as far as your processes, your platforms, what would be like the highlight, the most valuable part for you when it comes to, if someone comes to join you in one of your offerings, describe to them what it might, the value that, what can they expect, and the value that might, that they can kind of hold on to there.
Yeah. So for the Poetry for Healing program, it's an interesting thing, because when I created it, the value to me was the topics that we were diving into and really shifting the paradigm around the way I think most people hold these things, the way most people might be seeing things that are like, it's like an empowerment. It's like there's an empowerment within everything that I do, every topic. There's an opportunity to really stand in your power in an authentic way. And so in my mind, originally, that was the most important thing. And it really is a beautiful element of it, because it changes your whole world. It just changes everything. And the opportunity, though, to learn how to become your own therapist in a way, to learn how to have whatever is present for you, have a voice, and also have your wisdom, you can take that with you moving forward. And you have this process that you can always come back to that allows you to continue healing on your own, and then to be in a group where you get to push that edge, that vulnerable edge, and share authentically and have nothing but love and celebration of you back is so healing. Because trauma happens in conjunction with someone else, and so the healing of that has to be in conjunction with other people. So just being witnessed and heard and fully seen, we talk about this all the time, but when you're actually experiencing it, is completely transformational.
Yes, I love that. It's so true. Very true. We catch up and pause once in a while with the reception, but we're good. It's not long standing. There's these little pauses, but the audio is going through well. Yeah, and again, that's what we need right now. That's what I think. That's why those that are serving the public like we do have been, I think, ignited, and I think there's a lot of people being ignited into this way of showing up for, first and foremost, ourselves, deepening that connection with our inner divinity and our soul level, and then sharing our how-tos, sharing kind of what brought us through some of the depths and the darkness of it. And again, it's like this beautiful new wave of way showers that don't necessarily need to be healers. They want to share their journey so that if others, because it worked for them, and they know that feeling is so nurturing and, like you said, empowering, that if it can just help one person. So we take our pain and we take our shadows and we journey with them, and we learn how to see the beauty in them, and then we find a process of some way in that path, and now we're sharing it with others, right? And just allowing it to resonate and feed the souls that are feeling ready for that, feeling attuned to that, right? And I feel like there's, like, I want to thank you for the courage of what it takes, because I personally know, we know what it takes to sit with our selves, to sit with those shadow, to traverse the shadow lands, and to realize that it doesn't have to be a scary place, right?
It's a good point. Yeah. And can I share something about that? I think that's so important. Okay. So it's so easy to skip that part and to find other ways to feel better. And I think that's a little concerning to me at times, just because you can have a breakup and run right to another lover's arms, but you never get that chance. Then it's not just to sit with your stuff, but to get stronger and to connect spiritually more deeply, that will change your life and all your relationships moving forward. You have an opportunity right there to become a more empowered, open, solid, rooted person. And if you just keep playing out the same patterns, and I'm just using relationship as an example because it's a common one, there's a million options here, but that if you keep playing that out, nothing really changes. And so that's when we can use all the right language and talk about things and from such a light place. But it's like, are you really actually going in and facing all of that? Because it's such a beautiful doorway to, again, it's like I really do believe your pain becomes your power. It just does. You become such a different embodied like warrior, but in a beautiful way, like with the sword of truth, you know?
Yeah. And we're able to recognize within others and see, you know, once you've gone through certain journeys, like what we're speaking of, it's so easy to like pick up on it. It's so easy to, you know, your sensories are expanded. You have this, like you can pick up on certain types of pain, shame, rejection, all, you know, like, you know, all of the things that those journeys teach us. We become very clear and like, aha, and we don't necessarily have to point it out. We can just nurture it without making that person feel vulnerable. So it broadens our capacity, it broadens our intuition, it broadens our ability to relate and hold space and encourage others, right? Because we've already, you know, processed it. We've already, and it's not to say that we're never going to ever face those things again, right? But we'll be more artful when we do. We'll recognize it within ourselves rather than having to go through the full beginning to end as far as that, you know, avoidance and that, you know, denial and that coping mechanisms that you're talking about that people run to. You know, we understand there's a hamster wheel and that we don't have to go back onto it, and that we tools now, like you're offering people tools so that they can have them as the ability to approach and not only themselves but others. Like, so once, you know, don't you think like once you journey through in the way that you're sharing with people, then they can kind of go, oh, whether other people recognize it within themselves or not, you begin to recognize it within them. Got you.
Yeah, I think you said you begin to recognize it in them.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And it becomes, I mean, it really does become attractive, but not from a judgmental place, like an attractor that just makes you want to share with one another. And it's just a beautiful thing to have sat through so many challenges, and the humbleness and the wisdom that humility, excuse me, and the wisdom that comes from it also creates a freedom and a playfulness, and like all of it, again, it's just this springboard. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
Love it. I love it so much. So you want to play a game?
Yeah.
You want to pick a number? This is our pick
10.
a number kind of, 10. So let's see, 10. Oh, 10 is coherence.
That's so interesting. I love it. No, it's just great because again, as I was like putting together this promo video for this Poetry for Healing course, it really talks about, through the writing process, the mind, the body, and the spirit start to get into a coherence, and they start to write together. So everything gets on the same page, and you just become like this meditative ball of clarity for yourself. It's really, so I have to say that because, and I would like to add to that, that for me, I've always had like a very strong mind, like it's very busy, very analytical, very fast. So I will never find coherence through my mind. And instead of trying to calm my mind, I get into my body, I get into my heart, I get into my soul, and then my mind just goes whoop, right back. So knowing what you need for coherence within you based on how you're made up, I think is also important. Just allowing like your own artistic healing to be what it is, because we're all so unique.
I can agree more. It is
Yeah.
really important to understand that particular part of it, right? Because we are bio-individualistic, we are built differently, and we're correctly
Mhm.
built differently. We are designed differently, right? So to
Mhm.
understand that design in a way that you can enable yourself to not try to force any pattern or force any way of doing something, and accepting that part of the busy mind, right? Accepting certain parts if
Mhm.
that's how you're built. I love that you mentioned.
Mhm.
Love it. Yeah, because what works for me may not necessarily work for you, right? Or vice versa. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, next number.
4.
4 is synchronicity.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Synchronicity. Well, I don't have any stories on it per se in the moment because I feel like I have so many. I won't even know where to start. But it's one of the ways I one of the things. So the other program that I have that's not quite ready to go, but it's really about this feminine path to healing. Where we move out of a mental way of doing things strategically, and you follow your own heart, and you in grace and your intuition, and you tend to your human self, and it's really this um, building of the female spirit, I guess you could say. And so part of that is looking at the different ways that grace comes to us and speaks to us, because I think that we're wired. Like, one of the examples I gave was that you don't have to necessarily put out a memo on how you need to be communicated with. Like, if you want to say, hey, I need you to be really clear with me. I'm not getting it. I know you're there, but I can't hear you. I'm confused. Like, I think that's fine. Like, demand what you need, be clear. And whatever's supporting us, guides, angels, like whatever's working with us, they know how to reach us. And they know that for what's going to work for you might not work for me. And so for some people, synchronicity is a way that they are consistently being communicated with. For somebody else, they might be clairaudient, and it's not even about that. Right. So it's just, again, it's that, like, knowing how you're communicated with, what works for you, and then building that and staying in that flow to continue to expand. That's what
Beautiful.
comes up for me with that.
Beautiful. I absolutely love it. Like, that's kind of a new way for me to look at it. So I really do love that. Yeah. How
Good.
smart you are.
Just need topics.
Okay. One more.
Oh, another number. I'm like, okay, number 1.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've kind of touched on it already, but it's grace.
I could talk about this all day. I mean, I really believe that grace is the overseer of everything. Everything. I mean, there's such a desire in my heart. Oh, we both said that at the same time. There's such a desire in my heart to move past any type of like self-importance, and find the grace within everything. I mean, we can't even breathe without grace. We can't bat our eyes without grace. Nothing exists without it. And it's so funny to me that the mind is like easily, in our Western culture, oftentimes wants to say things like, I did this and I manifested this. And yes, this is again that funny thing where two things can be true at the same time. But like, yeah, like, amazing. You were on it. You kept yourself in the right energy. You were determined. I completely honor that. And without grace, it's not going to happen. A plane takes off, and grace is what lands it, not you in that moment. And it just really is interwoven into every scientific creation, everything. And so I just have such reverence, and it to me, it has to be at the top of everything. It's how intuition speaks to us is a form of grace. It's not that I'm so intuitive. I am so blessed that I have that grace in my life in this incarnation. So it's just I believe, time to bring the sacred back into these healing conversations and to hold the reverence, because the more we do that, actually, the more power comes through us, because it's the right kind of power. So,
Ugh,
yeah.
beautifully said. So beautifully said.
Mhm.
And I just literally feel like a warmth just like rushing through my entire cellular level right now, for that, because that's what happens when I hear truth, right? Like,
Mm.
thank you for sharing that and reminding those that are listening or will be listening, that is, and that's present for them, right? That they're, and it may look, grace is an interesting thing because we're all seeing through our lens, and sometimes we've edited out what grace can look like or feel like, right?
No. I'm getting so excited. And so this is how I get. I'm like, I want to talk more about grace.
Yeah, well, we
just listening to you.
Grace. Yeah.
I'm like getting hot, actually. Isn't this funny? I feel like most women do this when they see a sexy man, and I just do it when we talk about grace.
No, I understand completely. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm never going to be cool. I could try so hard. Okay. So, what were you just saying? Because it was making me really excited.
Oh gosh, maybe the lens that we're seeing through, is
yes.
holding, is keeping us from seeing and understanding the incredible amount of grace that is right in front of us, that is surrounding us, that is literally gifted to us in every single breath. And I'm with you there, sister. And I think it's because when you go through enough pain, when you've traveled through enough suffering, tragedy, trespasses, whatever, you start to understand the fullness of grace. You start to understand how incredibly, like you said, prevalent it really is, and how much we take for granted, right? So, which allows us to be in such a state of awe and gratitude all the time, right? Like, it's just because of that grace, because we know if it wasn't for grace, we wouldn't be here, literally. Right?
Yeah. I see it. I feel like we all see it in our own ways. You're talking about that lens, and I always see it like as light on water, or as the wind going through the leaves on a tree, and you just feel the divine expressing that way, it's coming through that way. And one of the things I've thought about too is just, taking it down into practical solutions for people. One of the things I really like to talk about is, well, what do you do when you don't feel that way? Because all these things are such wonderful if you're there, if you're in that space. And I've certainly felt abandoned by God. I've certainly felt, or the divine, whatever word you use. To me, they're all the same, so I use them interchangeably. But and anger and all those things that we were talking about before. And it was really amazing, because what would happen is I would cry out, right? Like allowing that human self, full voice, fully, I feel abandoned. Where are you? Like, what the hell is going on? And whatever is true for me, I like to express. So I was doing that, and it was amazing, because I can't tell you, it's like when it doesn't show up, you learn, you being me, I guess, how to have faith, how to have patience, how to surrender, how to let go, how to deal with your feelings. And in a way, that's its own form of grace, because you're evolving, right? And then when it does show up, it's so different than what you're feeling that it's like mind blowing. It's just, I'll have an example if that's okay. So I was I was talking about this recently on Facebook, actually, because apparently I just bear it all. So I was talking about when I had PTSD and I kept face planting like a couple years ago, and I was so ashamed. It was like, this was actually about grace. Such a beautiful story. So I was so ashamed that I kept falling on my, like, making decisions for my lizard brain. right? I was really in that state where I couldn't pull out because I was in fight or flight. And what kept happening was, I mean, I was very, like, talk about resilience. I'd spend 3 to 4 hours a day singing, chanting, writing, praying for months just to kind of get through. And what would start to come in? So what I did was I kept opening to grace. Like, I can't do this, I'm opening to grace. I can't do this, I'm opening to grace. You're not there, I'm mad, but I'm going to keep opening. Where are you? I'm going to keep opening, right? So it was just that determination. And I would start to hear, you're precious, you're perfect. And it would come through and it was not me, you know, and because I wasn't feeling that way. And then, like, a few months later, I had a healing session with a really powerful clairvoyant. And she's like, I just want to tell you, Christ is here and he just wants me to let you know that you're perfect and you're precious. So it was there the whole time, you know, and I didn't say a word to her. And that happens to me all the time. I have these experiences and then I don't say a word. I go in and somebody else tells me verbatim, you know, exactly what happened. And it just taught me how, no matter what is going on, grace is there. It's pulling you through. It's lighting the way. It's planting seeds in your mind that you think are your own brilliant thoughts. And it's like, no, we're going to go this way. And it's just, I don't think we have a clue how loved we are. I don't think we can even fathom it. It's just amazing. It's just amazing.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
I just wanted to share that, not to go back into like those, you know, the feelings conversation, because I know we're already there, but I think it's important to paint a picture for people that aren't having that experience of feeling that grace all the time, you know?
Right. But no, I think it's highly valuable what you shared, because again, when there is a inner voice or an inner knowing, you know, there are different ways that we perceive and we receive these things, but to not discount it, right? Right, like to understand that no, that's actually what we need to be paying more attention to.
Absolutely.
And to for those who may be in a difficult time and may not be, you know, used to leaning into that, you know, receptivity and actually, you know, understanding what it is, right? Those whispering of being precious and cherished and loved, you know, and then having it somehow randomly, synchronicity, like reflected back to you through another person, place, or thing, or somehow. I don't care if it's a billboard. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to see confirmations of those things. But, you know, to me, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in synchronicities. And because I don't need to believe in them. They've just showed up enough for me to understand that's the way of the universe, right? This is that the poetry and the plan is what I say, right? It's like the divine. This is the way the divine dances with us, and it can be an internal thing and an external reflection. So I think it's highly valuable to share that story so that others can recognize that that there's a sweetness there.
Oh, it's so sweet. When you start to feel that, it breaks your heart open. It's like it takes you into the truth like that. And then it's like such a shift. And I think that for me, prayer is a beautiful way to do that too, because it shifts from the doer to the receiver. And energetically, it's an offering of, you know, one of the things that I tell people, or one of the prayers I have offered is just, you know, I might ask for something, for help with something, and then I will say, but if I can't, if that's not possible, make me strong enough to accept this. Help me be who I need to be to handle this, you know. And in that moment, you become more open. And I think the more open we are, the more we experience grace. I think it's always there and it can cut through anything, but I think you experience it more.
Absolutely.
It becomes a part of your life daily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've worked with many clients that they don't know how to be open. They don't know how to receive. They don't know how to trust in something that isn't tangible, that they can't measure, and grace is, you know, it's not necessarily always tangible, right? So there are those that won't allow themselves the arena. It's like, it's almost, and it's sad to watch, but it's like they don't know how to trust that voice or to receive that voice. They have too much self-loathing or too much self-shame, or they're buried under these things, and they don't recognize the beauty that's offered them, right? So I think it's really valuable what you shared, because there are times when, again, I honestly believe that our oversoul, our divinity, is always setting us up for success or planting those beautiful things in our path, so that along the way we can be reminded that we are cosmic children, right? That we are, like you said, incredibly loved beyond imaginable. We are love, and we are incredibly loved and held precious. And there are many that have never experienced that from human to human. So to conceive that it can be beyond that and be from a soul level to a human is just literally out of their paradigm. Right?
You brought up a great point too, that they're buried underneath something. And that's exactly why I focus so much on the emotions. Because once you allow, instead of going, how do I become more like this? How do I become more like this? How do I change my thinking? Once you just poof everything out, it flows through, it rises up, because it is the truth. And so there's all these things on top of it. So that's exactly why the emotions, it's almost like sometimes I purposefully just bleh, because I know that my guidance is better. I feel lighter. Like, it's like, I can't do laundry tonight. I have to cry because I have some intuition to get to. It's just like,
I love it. No, I love it. We have to learn and allow ourselves that purging. I know some individuals that literally have held themselves under, I mean, not literally held themselves underwater, but emotionally they've held themselves under almost, and it's a perplexing thing to witness, right? And it's, they want proof of something. And I'm like, there's sometimes you have to do the one thing that you're not willing to do or haven't been willing to do, to surrender to something, like allowing yourself to feel cherished and loved by something untangible, right? So it is an interesting dynamic to to empower someone out of that, that piling up. And my go-to that is, what if, right? It's the what if you are innately illuminated, innately loved, what if that is, pre-existing, and the circumstance just hasn't allowed you, or you haven't allowed you to truly receive it. And like you said, the openness, the receptivity is the number one most important thing as far as self empowerment goes, as far as I'm concerned. Self-healing and self-empowerment, you must be open. You must be willing to receive and do things, approach things differently, right? And just be playful with, even if it's just your, right? Like you said, sometimes you just got to go blah, and like literally be a blah monster for the whole day, and just, like, right? Like do things that seem absurd and silly sometimes, because we never know what that will release and what's already there beneath it. I see you.
I'm watching the slow motion show. It's kind of interesting, but I heard you. Yeah. And I mean, that's actually how a lot of it started for me, was that I think grace comes into that too, because, I couldn't hold everything I was feeling when I was super sick and I was going through all these things and felt like there was no support, and I didn't know if my brain would work again properly. Like everything was so huge that I had to go beyond me. and I had to go beyond humans and dig deep. And I knew that my soul chose that path. I knew that the trials I was facing were a soul level initiation, so to speak. I don't really know if I like that word, but more like it was part of my spiritual journey. It was part of my choice coming to this planet, was to go through certain things. And so whether I liked it or not, I could turn away, fight it, and not grow, or I could dive into it and really open up and blossom. And I think that grace is like, it's found in those opportunities, and it's so important. I think at this day and age, when again there's a lot of, and I don't mean to sound judgmental, I think I'm using it as to make this point of the power of grace. But when there's so much self-importance and I, me, I'm the healer, I'm the teacher, I'm this, I'm that, I really feel that the opportunity here is for anybody in a teaching position or in a healing position is to open people up to the power of grace, and to open people up to where they're blocked, to open, but we're all doing that work to bring more light in for everyone and ourselves. And so without grace, none of it would be happening.
Slam dunk, sis.
Yeah.
Slam dunk. So are there anything, I know what's coming up for you, like upcoming, is there any events, any classes, workshops, for like what's in store, what's brewing up? I know you said you're about to launch something. So
yeah. So I'm doing once a month classes on a platform called Soul TV, which is therapeutic writing classes and spoken word classes to do more of that creative awakening, which I love because it's really fun. And we still touch on some of these things, but in a lighter creative container that feels expressive and just fun, like I said. So that's coming up. And then I'm also launching a beta test for my Poetry for Healing, because I want to really get people's feedback. And so that's going to be coming up here in probably the end of June. And I'm also, I've really been thinking about doing some specific classes on intuition and grace. I've got it pretty mapped out. So that will be coming up this summer as well.
Ooh, juicy juice,
Yeah,
exciting.
I know, lots of things coming down the pipes.
Share with me if those that are listening want to reach out to you, like how do they connect with you? What's the best way to, find you and tap in?
Yeah, well, there are, my website is The Way of a Woman. So it's kind of long, thewayofAwoman.com, obviously. And you can email me through that. And a really simple way is just to find me on Instagram or Facebook and send me a message as well. I'm pretty good because I have a lot of messages coming through there. So I'm pretty good at getting to those. And that's just, my name is spelled Lesley, and then Wirth.
Love it. Awesomeness.
Yeah.
So final thoughts. And again, thank you so much for all that you've shared and just your essence. It's absolutely stunning. And
thank you.
I have to say a shout out to Miss Cora for, connecting us.
Yeah.
And another beautiful, remarkably beautiful soul. I just want to note that beautiful bring beautiful things, right? So
what was that? Beautiful what?
Beautiful brings beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Just so grateful for that, and that is grace in action, right? So if you had one message for the world today with, all that is going on and in the collective, what would you say? What's your message to the world?
It's going to sound cliche, but it really is to trust your own heart. And I think that that is the invitation for everybody all the time, is to trust their deepest wisdom, because you can hear that part of you speaking that really is fully empowered and in just light, and it knows who's right for you. It knows where to go and when, and it also, I think we're in a phase right now of greater and greater levels of discernment and integrity and fine-tuning that globally. And it's shown up in really major ways, like politically and you know, corporations and all of that. But I think it's time that it dials down into this healing world and this therapeutic model, and really trusting your heart with who you work with, versus maybe who's the most well-known or has the greatest charm or whatever, and feeling through your body. Do I feel at peace and like I can be all of me with them, or do I have to perform in some way to meet their expectation? I think that's a huge, important question to ask. Woo, I almost fell over. I'm balancing on one foot when we're talking. That's so funny.
I love it. And it's very wise and very heart-centered. And I feel that message deep. And I couldn't agree more. Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, sister, for this beautiful time shared.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so good to see you. And thank you, Cora, as well.
Yes.
I love Cora.
Yeah, love her so much. And again, I deeply appreciate you and all that you're bringing to the world, and for taking the time to share on this, project with me. And it's a blessing. And I'm going to be dialing in and, checking in with what you have, and for, just, I want to be your biggest cheerleader. So
thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was a joy to connect with you.
Right back at you, sis. All right. Well, we'll probably have you on a different podcast too, or live stream as well. So till I see your beautiful face again. Mwah.
Bye.
Aloha.